The art room was silent. Once the final bell rings and school ends, the remaining students can usually be found either in their own classrooms, the schoolyard, or the club rooms. Their voices hardly ever reach all the way up to the art room on the 4th floor. It becomes so deathly quiet, it's as if the sound was torn from the very air itself. To the average student, the pieces of art adorning the art room walls emanate a sense of eeriness. There are very few students who would go out of their way to visit this room after school just to see these walls of art. On that note, lately the entire student body has been talking about how the art room contains one of the school's 8 mysteries. As he stood looking at those walls of art, those rumors were at the forefront of the mind of Yuki Noda. According to these stories, if a kid ventures into the art room alone after school, a yokai will come out of a painting and ask them a question. But what kind of question does he ask, I wonder? Maybe it's like the red cape or blue cape ghost story. It's a famous ghost story, usually set in a school. It must have become an urban legend at some school a long time ago and spread from there. The story goes that if you enter the bathroom alone late at night, a yokai called the Red Cape will ask you, "Do you want a red cape or a blue cape? Choose one." If you reply that you want a red cape, your body will be stabbed all over and you will die a bloody death. And if you reply that you want a blue cape, all the blood will be sucked out of your body and you will die a cold death, leaving nothing but a blue-colored corpse. There's no way to survive a story like that. That is what Yuki thought when he first heard of this ghost story. Both choices were bound to kill you. It wasn't fair. Apparently, this ghost story changes depending on which school it's told at. Some versions of the story have the blue cape use water torture, and some even include a yellow cape along with the other two. Incidentally, the punishment for the yellow cape is apparently death by electrocution. In all variations, the pattern is the same. No matter what you do, you'll die. But, according to his classmates, in the ghost story associated with this school's art room, there is one way out. As long as you correctly answer the question without breaking any of the rules associated with the story, you'll be able to survive. But if he was put in that situation, and his choice would decide if he lived or died, which choice would he make? That is what Yuki wondered. He is wondering what he really wants. If he could survive, would he want to? Would he want to live or to die? He simply does not know. Just what does he want? He rubbed a graze on his arm through his sleeve. Not even he himself knows. He has no idea, so today he has once again come to the art room. At that moment, a voice echoed out from the corner of the room. "Do you like those pictures?" Startled, Yuki turned around to see where the voice came from. Standing there was a cute young girl. She had long, soft-looking hair, large eyes, and a bright blue skirt. She was so beautiful that for a moment he had forgotten to breathe. "Those pictures, do you like them?" she asked again. She had a lovely voice. Yuki was clearly nervous. There shouldn't be any activities in the art room today, and very few people besides Yuki would ever come all the way out to this room. Yeah, I like them," he answered in a nervous voice after a long pause. "Really? How strange. Everyone says that the pictures decorating the walls here are scary and never come to see them. That does seem a little close-minded." He took another look around at the art on the classroom wall. Among the pictures of pretty girls and cute little animals, periodically there was much darker paintings adorning the wall. He had once read in a book that seeing horrible and scary things is needed to develop a sense of aesthetics. If all you ever see are pleasant and pretty things, then that can have a negative influence on your mental and emotional state. But even so, he couldn't help but feel that some of the art on these walls were too extreme. Each and every one of them was probably considered a masterpiece, but they portrayed scenes far too dark. They were so scary that if a kid saw them in the middle of the night, they would probably burst into tears. All the kids who come to this room think that they're scary. They say that they make the art room look like a haunted house. The girl spoke with a smile, but something about it seemed lonely. I mean, sure, there are a bunch of scary pictures here, but I like them. These pictures. Really? Yeah, I see them all the time, but it always amazes me at what an impact the art of a great artist can have. Yuki may be too young to completely grasp the meaning of these works of art, but he had a hard time explaining the inspiration he felt from them. He wasn't sure how exactly to put it into words, but they had a strong impact on him. He knew that his classmates called the art room haunted. He thinks it's natural for them to think that way. But for some reason, he really liked the art room. He knew that there were a lot of scary pictures in the room, and they scared him too. But even those pictures filled him with a strong sense of inspiration. This art room frees him from the monotony of his everyday life. It is an airport to another world. That's the kind of feeling it gives him. It makes him experience a culture shock like learning about a mysterious new culture for the first time. It's rare to meet someone who doesn't consider this room to be like a haunted house. The girl smiled joyfully, almost as if she herself had been praised. Which picture is your favorite? Good question. He looked over the pictures hanging on the wall. There were the works of Picasso and Goya that gave off a feeling of fright, and the contrastingly sublime and warm feelings works of Da Vinci and Vermeer. Each of them was called a masterpiece, whether it was for their scaredness or their ghastliness. But Yuki's favorite painting was not one of them. I think my favorite one is this one. Yuki pointed to one of the paintings. The girl's eyes opened wide in surprise. It was a somewhat plain painting. In terms of impact, it was hardly comparable to the others on this wall. However, to Yuki, this painting was the most impressive. He genuinely believed that it was prettier than any of the other paintings. It was a painting of a girl. She was a beautiful English-looking girl and was holding a short whip. She had very soft-looking hair that went down to her shoulders, and she wore a bright blue skirt. Wait. Hey, you look a lot like the kid in this painting. Really? Yeah, your hair, your clothes, they're almost exactly the same. Looking again, she really did bear a resemblance, almost as if she had crawled out of the very painting itself. I don't really like it, honestly, this appearance, the girl replied with a bitter smile. What a strange kid. If she didn't like how she looked, then all she had to do was change it. But you look really girly. I think it looks good. He wasn't lying. He thought that it was perhaps a bit too flashy for school, but he also felt like it suited the way her face looked perfectly. But Yuki's words had clearly displeased the girl. She was obviously scowling. Her large eyes were now narrow and glaring at Yuki. Oh, I'm sorry. He frantically apologized. Did he say something bad? If you really don't like how you look, why not try changing your clothes? Or maybe cut your hair shorter? Once again, he immediately regretted opening his mouth. It's possible that her parents may be strict, and they won't let her choose her own clothes or hairstyle or something like that. But this time, unexpectedly, she smiled at him. Like a little flower opening up its petals, a cute smile spread across her face. I see. You're right. It might be nice to change things up every once in a while. I've never thought of it that way before. She really does say some strange things. There's no way that she would wear the exact same outfit every day. Still, he was relieved that she was in a good mood again. But once he calmed down, a slight impatience crept into his heart. How is he going to get her to leave the art room? If she sticks around this place for much longer, it'll become a problem. Because for what Yuki came to the art room to do, there couldn't be anyone else here. No, actually, Yuki still wasn't sure whether or not he wanted to do it. Why was he coming to this room every single day? He feels like he has nowhere to go, but if someone could save him from that feeling, would he want to be saved? His own feelings felt unclear to him, as if they were covered over with a layer of beige paint. Does he really want to keep living with the pain of having these vague feelings, or would he rather just make it easy for himself and just die? No, perhaps As he was thinking about this, the girl turned and started walking towards the door, as if she were about to part ways with him. Maybe she picked up on the fact that he wanted her to leave? That's what he had hoped, but of course there's no way that she would have guessed that without him telling her. The girl stopped directly in front of a picture hanging right next to the exit. It was an oil painting. The painting featured a dark silhouette in the shape of a human being crushed by a gigantic black bust. There was a small piece of paper placed beneath the painting that titled the work, "The Setting Sun." Apparently, the artist of this painting had once gone to this school. Later in life, that person had become a famous artist and donated this painting to this old school. What was the name of that person again? Yuki remembered that Shintani-sensei had told him at one point. She was the kind and beautiful art teacher who happened to be very popular with the boys. Just thinking about that teacher caused a pain in his chest, a heart-rending and agonizing pain. At that moment, he suddenly felt like he understood a little better what his wish was. Perhaps, if I could... "Hey, Yukinoda-kun?" Still looking at the painting, the girl called his name. Yuki felt like something was out of place. Had he given the girl his name? On top of that unease, he remembered the ghost story his classmates had been talking about. Whispers about one of the 8 mysteries of this school, about the yokai that would crawl out of a painting after school in the art room and ask a question. If you couldn't answer that question correctly, then you would be cursed. The name of that yokai was Renoir of the Art Room. "Do you know who did this painting?" A smile crept across her beautiful face that made Yuki shiver. "Shintani-sensei, do you have any plans today?" Nafumi Shintani was straightening out a stack of documents on her desk when a voice called out from behind her. The coffee maker was located directly behind her seat in the staff room, so it was not uncommon for other staff to make small talk with her while pouring their coffee. While putting the papers into a drawer, she turned her head around to see that it was Imata-sensei who was standing behind her. The two of them were close in age, so they would often make small talk. Just as she was wondering if he was going to invite her out for drinks like usual, he did just that. "Would you like to go out for drinks after this? I found a pretty nice place right by the train station." Shintani made an apologetic face and replied, I'm sorry. When I'm done here, I've got some work to do in the art room today. Imata-sensei had invited her out many times before. She was beginning to feel a little guilty always giving an excuse and turning him down, but she was also wondering what he was thinking asking her out so often even though she was turning him down. He turned 33 this year, and it wasn't exactly that he was uncool. He had a good sense of uprightness and was popular among parents and other guardians. The students always tease him by calling him hot-blooded sensei. Shintani sees him as a relatively plain person, but in truth, his refreshingly simple and honest personality held some appeal. But sorry, Shintani isn't interested in older men. Since she was a kid, the only people she was ever attracted to were younger than herself. Even now, at nearly the age of 30, that has not changed. Imata-sensei made an obviously disappointed face. I see. Would you like me to help you out with that work? I mean, I'm not saying that because I have an ulterior motive or anything. As he tried to explain himself, his face got all red. Without thinking, my face formed into a wry smile. He really was a plain and easy-to-read person. If he really didn't have any ulterior motives, then that was quite the reaction. It's fine. It's really not that much work. As she spoke, she realized what a poor excuse she had given. If it really wasn't that much work, then there was no reason why she couldn't get it done and go drinking with him, and she expected him to pick out that flaw. But Imata's response wasn't that she had expected. Ah, okay, but aren't you afraid to go into the art room alone after that incident? Shintani strained to maintain her smile. That incident. Those words alone made her vividly recall one student's face. Imata-sensei's face immediately turned to an expression of regret, and he apologized. Oh, I'm sorry. I said something I shouldn't have. No. It's fine. She was just barely able to reply calmly. Imata-sensei replied with a forced cheeriness in his voice. That was just a rumor, right? A rumor. A rumor. Right now, that rumor was the hot topic among the students. You mean Renoir of the art room? How silly. Why do kids even like rumors like that, even though one of their friends has passed away? Isn't it because of that reason? Huh? Having one of your friends die is a very serious thing to go through. Maybe too serious for children to accept. So it might be easier for them to place the blame on yokai or something else enigmatic like that. Shintani-sensei, could it be that you also believe in that stuff? No, but sometimes I want to. Sometimes, when I'm feeling down, I start to think, if only I had paid better attention, maybe I could have prevented that from happening. Don't think like that. That was just an accident. There's no way at all that you were at fault. Thank you. Shintani forced herself to smile and stood up. Well then, I'll be going now. Goodbye, Imata-sensei. Imata-sensei looked like he had said something else to say, but she pretended not to notice and quickly turned and left the staff room. She shut the door behind her and let out a deep sigh, involuntarily dropping into a crouch. Her knees struck the floor and made a dull thud. A short moment later, a slight pain spread through her legs. It's been a few weeks since that incident, but the thought of it still brings a pain to her heart. It was a violent pain, like having a healing wound reopened by someone digging their fingers into it. Once again, she remembered the face of that boy. The face of that boy who had died, her chest mercilessly and suffocatingly seized up. Shintani muttered to herself, too quiet for anyone else to hear. Yuki-kun, why? Why did that have to happen to you? Yuki Noda passed away last month. A teacher patrolling the building after school found him crushed underneath a plaster bust in the art room. It was a rather large bust and was a reproduction of a Greek sculpture that was used in class to practice sketching. It hit Yuki Noda on the back of his head. Officially, the cause of death was extensive blood loss, but he probably died instantaneously. Most likely, Yuki Noda had gone into the art room after school and somehow tripped and fell under the desk supporting the bust. At that point, he bumped the legs of the desk, and the bust resting on top of it lost its balance and came toppling down onto Yuki. That is nearly everything that is known regarding the circumstances of the incident. It was judged that his death was just an unfortunate accident. But in the meantime, a rumor has been spreading among the students. A rumor that Yuki Noda was cursed to his death by Renoir of the Art Room. Renoir of the Art Room is one of the 8 mysteries handed down from year to year in this school. As far as school ghost stories go, normally there would only be 7 mysteries, but at some point the school had gained an 8th mystery. Well, it's not too odd for a mammoth school like this one to gain 1 or 2 more. This is the story. If you go into the art room alone after school, a young yokai named Renoir will appear before you and ask you a few questions. You must answer those questions correctly. If you lie or answer incorrectly, Renoir will force upon you a terrible curse. Was that curse to blame for Yuki Noda's death? Was he killed because he answered Renoir's questions incorrectly? That is the rumor that was being spread around the school right now. But Shintani didn't believe that rumor in the slightest. His death wasn't because of some ghost story. He didn't die because of some silly yokai named Renoir. She was sure of that. But no matter where the blame is placed, that doesn't change the reality that he is dead. Yuki-kun is no longer in this world. She will never see him again. When she closes her eyes, she can still see the way he looked on the inside of her eyelids. "I'm your biggest fan, Shintani-sensei." His smiling face looking down at his feet bashfully. She could so easily remember his smiling face, but never again could she see it with her own eyes. Nor could she ever complete the painting she had been working on. When she realized that, she let out another deep sigh. The sigh spread throughout her body, descending down to her feet and hanging heavily there like sediment in a glass. If she remained motionless, she was afraid that she would be unable to get up and take another step. She used all of her strength to force herself to stand up before that could happen. When she looked down, she saw that her legs were stained with blood. She must have skinned her knees. She gently reached down and traced the cuts with her fingers. A faint iron-like smell drifted up to her nose. Should she go to the infirmary and get a bandage? Shintani wiped the blood from her fingers on a handkerchief and began walking, trying to get the image of Yuki Noda to leave her mind. I've stayed behind after school too long again. I need to hurry up and finish my work or it really will get dark. Shintani checked the time on her way up the stairs to the 4th floor. The school nurse was also close in age to her and Imata-sensei, so every once in a while Shintani would end up going to the infirmary to talk to her. She was nice, maybe a little ditzy sometimes, but Shintani still enjoyed talking with her. She had intended to just get a bandage and get back to work, but she ended up staying for tea too. I wonder if I should invite her to the art room for tea this time. I'm pretty good at making tea myself. Shintani hid the things necessary for brewing black tea within her desk in the art room. The vice principal brought his own set of black tea making supplies to the staff room a while back, so she decided to do the same and snuck her own set into school. She got plenty of different tea leaves in a can so that she could enjoy any number of different blends depending on how she felt on a given day. Before starting her work today, she decided to make some chamomile tea. That should help her calm down and relax. She opened the door to the art room as she continued to consider what type of tea to brew. But as she did, something suddenly felt out of place. She felt like there was someone inside the room. She tried to survey the inside of the room, but the various sculptures and artworks cast dim shadows over everything, and she couldn't properly assess if there was someone or not. Is anyone there? She flicked the light switch and the lights came on. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a petite young boy. Upon seeing him, for a moment Shintani forgot to breathe, for the boy was startlingly beautiful. He had large eyes like that of a cute little kitty or puppy, and skin so white it seemed almost transparent. His chestnut-colored hair looked too natural to have been dyed, and with the bright fluorescent light reflecting off of it, it shone like it was covered in stars. "Ah, sorry for startling you, Sensei. I came into the room without asking." His voice was high-pitched, not yet changed by puberty. Its delicate musical instrument-like quality fit his appearance perfectly. "Has there really been such a pretty young boy going to our school? There are a lot of students that go here, but she doubted that such a conspicuous kid would go unnoticed by her for this long. Maybe he was a transfer student?" While she was mulling this over in her head, the young boy was expecting to be scolded, and thus was looking up at her with an apologetic expression and puppy dog eyes. Seeing the boy acting like a small animal once again took away Shintani's breath. "Don't worry about it. Is there something you need in the art room?" Hiding how shaken she was, she smiled at the boy, hoping to calm him down. Well, could it be that you want to join the art club? Unfortunately, the art club isn't active right now, since that accident which just happened so recently." No, it's not that. I just wanted to see this painting. I really like this one." The boy shyly looked over at the wall. The walls in the art room were covered with famous works by artists like Picasso, Vermeer, and Leonardo da Vinci. Naturally, they weren't the originals, just colored copies made from a book of prints. But by putting them in decorative picture frames, they managed to look rather impressive. The one that the boy was looking at was a work by M.C. Escher. It was a drawing of a never-ending staircase in which the top step of one staircase became the bottom step of another. On this staircase were a group of people, endlessly ascending and descending. It's a print that puts the so-called concept of impossible objects like the Penrose Triangle and Devil's Fork to use, and it's a famous optical illusion. "I like this one too. Isn't it cool? It fools your eyes." The boy looked at her smiling face and blushed, his cheeks turning a shade of light pink, almost as if they were little cherry trees in full bloom. Seeing this reaction from him made Shintani's heart flutter. Maybe, with this kid. Glancing out of the window, she saw that the sun was already setting. The students have long since gone home. Furthermore, ever since the accident, people seldom come to the art room for any reason other than class. Shintani gently laid a hand on the boy's shoulder. As she touched that slender shoulder, he gave a slightly startled jump. "Hey, can you spare some time?" "Huh?" "I was wondering if you might be a model for the picture I'm drawing." Seemingly surprised by her sudden request, the boy's eyes opened up very wide. "Maybe, with this kid, I'll be able to finish my drawing. I've been wanting to draw a picture with a boy like you as a model. Would you mind helping me out?" She brought her hands together in front of her chest in an imploring manner. He blinked several times before dropping his eyes towards his feet and answering in a small voice. "Is it really okay for me to be a model?" "Yes. All I need to complete it is you. Do you not want to?" "No, that's not it. It would be a privilege, because I'm..." And then, while looking down at his feet with an embarrassed smile, from his mouth came the exact same words that Yuki Noda had said a few months before. "I'm your biggest fan, Shintani-sensei." Inside the art room, only the sound of a pencil drawing on a sketchbook page could be heard. There were still kids participating in after-school clubs, but because the art room doesn't face the schoolyard, their voices could barely be heard. And every once in a while, the faint sound of someone walking down the stairs could be heard. "No need to be so tense, okay? I want to make sure to capture your natural facial expression." She smiled at the young boy modeling on the chair, hoping it would ease him up a bit. He did have a small smile on his lips, but his expression seemed stiff. His shoulders and back were also tense from the nervousness of being watched by another. "I'm sorry, I'm not really used to doing this, so..." "Don't worry. It's your first time being a model, right?" No. Actually, I've done it once before, but that was a long time ago." Finding his answer rather unexpected, she couldn't help but let out an impressed, "Oh? Did you model for a painting? Or was it for a photograph?" The boy made a troubled face, as if he wasn't quite sure how to answer. Seeing that expression made Shintani's imagination wander. Come to think of it, the school prohibits its students from working as models or actors outside of school. Maybe this boy had done some talent-related work or something and had been keeping it a secret from the school. At any rate, he certainly had the looks for it. It wouldn't be odd for a talent agency to scout him out. Maybe it wasn't even that much. It could have been that he did voice work, promoting a store on street corners or modeled for a magazine. But she's not as fussy as the vice principal. If this boy did do something like that and hide it, it's not like she'd be angry at him. When Shintani decided to drop the question and continue her drawing, the boy looked relieved. You're not going to enter this drawing into a contest or anything like that, right? No, I don't especially intend to exhibit it or anything. I just want to be able to keep pursuing my hobby. In the past, she had wanted to be an artist, but gave up on that when she became a teacher. She still likes art, but she's accepted how things are. It's nothing more than my hobby. Naturally, she doesn't intend to show anyone this drawing of hers. That's a relief. I don't really like to stand out too much, he said while vaguely lowering his eyes. Maybe he wasn't worried about getting scolded for working outside of school at all. Maybe he's just shy. Shintani found that sort of childish reaction charming. Really? But with how cute you are, don't you get a lot of attention anyway? I bet the girls in your class won't leave you alone. Not really. Even though I'm a boy, I look like a girl, so I get made fun of a lot. That would make sense. The boy's face is cuter than most girls out there. If he were to wear girls' clothes and a wig, then very few people would even suspect him of being male. None of them know true good looks. I, on the other hand, like how your face looks. The boy's mouth shut. His cheeks turned red before her eyes. She pretended not to notice his cute reaction and kept moving her pencil. Shintani knew that she was popular among the male students. To children of this age, having a teacher as kind and pretty as her is a big deal. In a month, she'd usually receive at least one love letter, and there were numerous cases of students entering the art club in hopes of getting closer to her. The embarrassed-looking boy, still averting his eyes from Shintani, suddenly opened his mouth to say something. Sensei, are you going to do an oil painting as well? Oh, why do you ask? Isn't that a tool for oil painting over there? The boy was looking at a palette knife placed on her desk. Yes, it is. I enjoy doing oil paintings more than watercolors. I like being able to put layers of paint on top of each other. I used to paint them after school, but the vice principal started complaining about it, so I stopped. Why? Did he get mad at you? He complained that the smell of my oil paints would never air out of the room. Besides, since I don't actually teach oil painting in my classes, he said that I shouldn't use the art room for my own hobbies. Really, he's such a stubborn person. Even though he always brings in his own stuff to the staff room. I like oil paintings too. I can't really do it, but I like looking at them. The boy spoke with a smile. It looks like he's eased up a bit. Shintani smiled back at him, feeling a little happier. She may not be able to do oil paintings here anymore, but that hasn't stopped her from using it for her own hobbies. She glanced over at the palette knife sitting on the desk. It was a knife in name only. It lacked the sharpness of a real knife. It's a tool used for mixing oil paints and applying it to the canvas. However, Shintani did not use it for painting. She had a much more wonderful use for it. The intensity of Shintani's pencil strokes had obviously gotten stronger. In actuality, she was frantically holding back a certain desire building up within her. No, I have to hold back. I have to be patient and take my time. If I don't, I'll lose my chance to draw what I really want to draw. I won't be able to draw my masterpiece. In order to earn this kid's trust, I need to bide my time for at least 3 weeks. Besides, it hasn't even been 1 month since Yuki-kun died. She needed at least that long to calm down about that. She wondered how long it's been since she started her sketch, when suddenly the boy opened his mouth again. Sensei? His voice was much lower and meeker than it had been before now. Shintani stopped moving her hand mid-stroke. What is it? Why did that accident have to happen to Yuki-kun? Out of the blue, he mentioned Yuki's name, and Shintani's heart jumped. Who can say? I don't really know. Trying to hide how off guard his question caught her, she faked a calm voice and replied with her own question. Were you Yuki-kun's friend? No. I wasn't really close enough to him to be considered his friend, but that would make sense. Yukinoto was an extremely timid student. She wouldn't expect him to have any good friends. Sensei, what do you think about that rumor? Ah, that one? The story of Renoir of the art room? The boy nodded his head and looked over at the wall. Hanging there was a single painting. In front of a flower bed filled with vibrantly colored flowers stood a beautiful English-looking girl wearing a blue skirt and gripping a short whip. Her eyes looked awfully cold, and her smile horribly lonely. This was Pierre-Auguste Renoir's child with a whip. Once again, Shintani recalled the rumor that the students had been spreading. A rumor about one of the 8 mysteries of the school, Renoir of the art room. Apparently, there were 5 main parts to the story of Renoir of the art room. 1. Never let Renoir lend you a paintbrush. 2. If Renoir points to one of the pictures in the art room and asks you who made it, you have to answer the name of the artist correctly. 3. You can't lie when answering Renoir's questions. 4. If you break any of the above 3 rules, you'll be cursed by Renoir to befall the same fate as one of the paintings on the art room walls. And 5. Renoir looks just like the kid in the painting, child with a whip, hanging on the art room's wall. Together with the boy, Shintani stared at that painting, child with a whip. At that pale-hued painting of a beautiful girl with eyes so cold they could make you shiver. Without looking away from that painting, Shintani asked him a question. What do you think? I don't think it's true. I don't think that it was Renoir's curse that killed Yuki-kun. Yeah, I agree. It was just a rumor, nothing more. The police said that he was probably just playing alone in the art room and an accident happened. He probably just tripped at some point and unfortunately that bust fell on him. Shintani shifted her gaze away from the painting. To the right of the child with a whip, there was a slightly larger painting. This picture wasn't a color copy placed in a frame like the others. It was the real thing, an oil painting done on a canvas, unlike any other in the art room. The Setting Sun by Yosuke Sakurazaka. Shintani heard that Sakurazaka was a student that graduated from the school a long time ago. Apparently the theme of failure and rebirth was prevalent in many of his works. When he was still young, he suddenly happened to hit it big. When that happened, he decided to donate this piece of art to the school he graduated from. And this painting was originally what started that rumor. The rumor that Yukinota's death was the curse of Renoir of the art room. The Setting Sun was an abstract painting. A giant black bust was mercilessly crushing the pale silhouette of a human. And that was the very same end that Yukinota met. A blackened plaster bust and the small, deathly pale body of Yukinota. That was one of the main parts of the story of Renoir of the art room. Whoever breaks the rules of the story will be cursed by Renoir and will meet the same fate as one of the paintings on the art room walls. Yukinota had an encounter with Renoir in the art room after school and had to answer her questions. He was then either unable to answer a question or told a lie, and was killed in the same manner as the Setting Sun. That is the rumor that had been spreading around the school. Still staring at the painting, the boy's face distorted, mouth shut tight. He may have been imagining the scene of Yuki's death. Sorry, let's drop this conversation here. Shintani smiled at him, but this time the boy's cheeks didn't turn red. His brow was furrowed and he looked like he was desperately trying not to cry. He must be a very sensitive kid. Even though they weren't friends, just like fellow students at the same school, it looked like he was genuinely grieving the boy's death from the bottom of his heart. With the utmost discretion, Shintani admired that face of his. Such a heart-rending and pained expression. She found his beautiful face racked with sorrow to be beyond perfection. A shiver ran down her spine. How beautiful. I'm at my limit. A temptation was rising in her heart. It wasn't much, but it was still too much for her to hold back any longer. Shintani's hand stopped drawing. Her hand was slightly shaking, and she couldn't hide the slight smile that had spread across her lips. "Do you want some tea?" "Huh?" To Shintani, it seemed like a very nonchalant question, but to the boy, it seemed entirely out of place and sudden. "I have the things here for brewing herbal tea. Wait here a second. I'll make you some." Without waiting for his answer, Shintani stood up and walked towards her desk. From the drawer, she took out her tea kettle and cups. Once she plugged the kettle into the power outlet, it would take less than 5 minutes to bring the water to a boil. And that time, Shintani felt a strange feeling of tension in the silence of the art room. But that feeling was neither fear nor nervousness. She takes the bottled tea leaves out and quickly mixes them with a deft hand. The refreshing smell of herbal tea gently filled the art room. "Doesn't it smell so nice? This tea is my original blend. It'll really help you relax." Subconsciously, she had put more emphasis on the word really than she had meant to. She poured a bright red, almost poisonous-looking liquid into their cups. She passed the boy his cup, and he took it with both hands as if to warm them. She suppressed her desire to reach out her hands and touch those long white fingers. Ah, this kid. Even the shape of his fingernails was pretty. Shintani stared at the boy, tasting him with her eyes, and he didn't seem to notice. "Thank you for the tea," the boy said as he rose the cup to his eye level and gently placed it up to his lips. Shintani watched the muscles in his little throat move as he swallowed his tea. Drink up, she thought to herself. She felt like the queen giving a poisoned apple to Snow White. A dark gray smoke escaped from Shintani's mouth as she extinguished the cigarette she had been smoking on the edge of an empty can. The only place that Shintani ever smoked was in this art room. Smoking wasn't allowed in the staff room, and she wasn't about to let the other teachers or students see her smoking. If she was ever caught smoking, the illusion the boys have of her being a kind and beautiful teacher would be crushed instantly. As stupid as she thought it was, Shintani still forced herself to maintain that illusion. It was more beneficial that way, after all. If she put on a cute, smiling face at her behest, she could make a male staff member swap watch duty shifts with her. And if she was being scolded by the vice principal, if she acted like she was about to cry, she could usually make someone stand up for her. She didn't really mind the blatant moves made on her by men like Imata, but on the other hand, she had no intention of accepting their invitations either. But above all, she could make those boys who were enchanted by her illusion into her captives, just like this. In the back of the classroom, on an old sofa, there sat the boy, defenseless and asleep, breathing softly. If everything goes as expected, he should wake up 2 or 3 hours after the medicine took effect. I do apologize. However, this drug should not do any damage to your body, so rest easy, Shintani muttered as she looked over at his empty teacup. She then looked over at this innocent sleeping face and narrowed her eyes. The light from the evening sun shone through the window. By now, most of the students participating in sports clubs have most likely gone home. Not a single voice could be heard coming from the other classrooms or halls. Being in this classroom wrapped in silence, it made her feel like they were the only living things left inside this entire school. Her and this lovely young boy. He really is so beautiful. I wonder how long I've been like this. I wonder when I first started being attracted to young boys. I've always liked younger men. I used to date those in lower grades than me in both high school and college. But without fail, each of her lovers would get older and become an adult. Even if they were childish and idealistic to start with, they would eventually grow past that and begin to look at the world from a more realistic point of view. And just like that, the beautiful little flower she knew would cease to be that way ever again. No matter the flower, it would eventually wilt and fade away. So, just as they would inevitably grow up, she would inevitably lose interest in them. Shintani loved those boy-like characteristics and couldn't care less about things like manliness or physical strength. Once she gave up on being an artist and became a teacher, before long she could no longer repress her extreme preferences. In front of her were real young boys. Real boys were all around her, and not a single one of those somewhat childlike men she dated before this could possibly compare. Shintani wanted to draw these beautiful boys. She wanted to make that single moment, that brief instant called boyhood, and capture it for an eternity. But no matter how much she drew, she just wasn't satisfied, until finally she realized why. What she wanted to capture was not the wholesomeness and modesty of boys. What she wanted was much more immodest, no, downright immoral. To see them disgraced and corrupted by her own hand, a corrupted and miserable appearance, that was all she wanted to draw. She started to understand her own desires, and by doing so, she could understand herself. Shintani sat down next to the boy. She gently crept her fingers down the pale white skin on the nape of his neck, savoring the smooth ceramic-like texture of his skin with her fingertips. His smooth throat didn't yet have that impure and inelegant indicator of adulthood. He was still without an Adam's apple. She lowered her fingers down to his back, caressing his shoulder blade through his thin shirt. Some people say that our shoulder blades are the remnants of wings. This child really seemed like an angel. Glancing down the collar of his shirt, she saw his collarbone and couldn't help but want to touch it. Shintani reached down to undo his shirt buttons. Yuki-kun was cute, but this kid is so much more. Shintani recalled the beautiful little body of Yuki Noda. Pure white and so sweet, like a honey that knows no impurities. But this boy, whose name she did not know, his was unique and of the finest quality. Yes, all of the students at this school had their own nectar. The students were just like bees, hurriedly carrying nectar around day after day, and this school was their beehive. And the bees bring their sweet nectar to this art room and present it to me. Yes, I am the queen bee. I am the queen who reigns over this art room and satisfies myself with the beautiful children's sweet honey. Still, what a dumb story that was. Yuki Noda was killed by the curse of Renoir of the art room. Shintani never once believed that ridiculous rumor passed around by the students. Yuki didn't die because of some curse. After all, Shintani knew that what really killed Yuki better than anyone else in this school did. "What are you doing, Shintani-sensei?" Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind, and Shintani's heart jumped in surprise. She whipped her head around in a flash, and standing there was a single girl. She had a transparent feeling of beauty to her. Every single human should have at least a faint smell of flesh or skin to them, but this girl had none of that. She felt transparent. But more so than her elegant appearance, what truly astonished Shintani was the girl's uncanny lack of presence or sound. "Who are you?" "Even if you don't know who I am, I know who you are, sensei." "What? What do you mean by that?" Shintani considered herself to be pretty good at remembering people's faces. If a kid has been in her art room even only once, she should definitely be able to recall their face. But this girl's face wasn't in her memory at all. "That's fine. You don't need to remember who I am." The girl gave a slight smile. It was as if she were responding to the voice in Shintani's mind. "By the way, sensei, what are you doing to that kid there?" The girl moved her gaze over to the boy sleeping next to Shintani. Shintani stood up in a panic, as if trying to avoid the question by separating herself from him. I asked this kid to help me out by modeling for a picture, but he suddenly started feeling sick, so I had him lie down on the sofa." "Oh? But if he's feeling sick, why keep him here? Wouldn't it be better to take him to the infirmary? That's what I said, but he kept insisting that he'd be fine and all he needed to do was lie down for a bit. It looked like the girl accepted that answer for the time being. She wasn't exactly lying. He did say he wasn't feeling so well when he started to fall asleep right after drinking the herbal tea. But the one who made him drink that tea was none other than her. Shintani took a deep breath to try and slow her heartbeat down. She had no idea who this person was, but Shintani had nothing to gain from continuing their conversation in this room. Shintani lowered the tone of her voice and moved to shift the blame onto the girl. "And what are you doing in the art room? School finished hours ago." She spoke while looking over the girl's face one more time. Her face certainly was beautiful, almost like the beauty of a statue from the Middle Ages. But it wasn't just that. It was like she really was a statue. She was cold and didn't appear to have any warm blood flowing through her veins. It was almost as if her face was that of a wax figure, frozen in time. What time school ends bears no significance to me, Sensei. After all, I have nowhere to go home to. In this town, there were merely households that had parents who both worked full-time. There are some students that will go home to an empty house, but others will sometimes choose to loiter around school after hours. Shintani knew this. However, with the way this girl worded it, that didn't seem to be what she was talking about. Still, she was such a beautiful girl. Describing her with such ordinary words as cute or pretty just doesn't do her any justice. Her devilish smile held such powerful gravitational pull that even a woman like Shintani couldn't take her eyes off of it. It made her hair stand on end, as if claws of ice were running down her back. "Oh, what's this? Did you draw this, Shintani-sensei?" At some point, the girl had picked up Shintani's sketchbook. She had it open to a page that she was looking intently at. It was the picture of the boy that she had been drawing before this. The only part she hadn't drawn of him was the face. Luckily, she drew everything beneath the neck first. Shintani heaved a sigh of relief. It's not finished yet. Yeah, since as you can see, he fell asleep. Ah, I see. Hey, Shintani-sensei. The girl peered into Shintani's eyes. Shintani shivered. It was as if her eyes were looking directly into her soul. "If you want to, why don't you use me as a model in his place?" Huh? Upon hearing her sudden question, my eyes widened. "You're going to have to stay here until he wakes up, right? So why don't you draw me in the meanwhile?" It'll be fine, Sensei. Please? Shintani had no choice. The eyes of this girl, it looked like she could see through everything Shintani was trying to do. Even if she wasn't doing anything wrong, if that someone started going around saying that a teacher was bringing students to the art room after school for her own personal goals, it's entirely possible that she could be falsely accused of something. She didn't want anyone to ruin the sanctuary that is her art room. Wanting to avoid any trouble, Shintani could do nothing but nod her head in agreement. She silently took the sketchbook from the girl and turned to a new page. Thank you, Shintani-sensei. The girl laughed innocently and, without any instruction from Shintani, went over and sat on the modeling chair. Oh my, this chair is really soft, just like a sofa. Feels good to sit on. Don't move around too much. It makes it hard to draw. Don't worry, I'll sit still. But can I at least move my mouth to talk? If it's just a little. Okay. So what do you think of that story? The one that the students have been talking about recently. Renoir of the art room. Shintani's hand stopped right in the middle of getting a pencil out from her pencil case. I thought it would make for a good topic, since this is the art room and all. Isn't that a bit rude, talking about that rumor so soon after the accident happened? Her voice got caught up in the back of her throat. Oh? Then you think his Yuki Noda's-kun's death was an accident, then? Not the curse of Renoir of the art room? Obviously. There's no such thing as curses. The girl smiled pleasantly. Well then, have you heard the other rumor? Other rumor? Yeah, the one that Yuki Noda-kun was being bullied. It wasn't just the students that were talking about that. It was a hot topic among the staff and parents of other students as well. When they found Yukinota's body in the art room, they discovered a lot of scars that were made when he was still alive. Yuki's parents questioned the school on whether he may have been bullied by someone in his class. Wasn't that just a rumor? His homeroom teacher and fellow classmates all said that he wasn't being bullied. Yeah, it's true that they never found any evidence that he was being bullied. Exactly. Not a single person in this entire school said that they had ever seen him being bullied. But does the absence of evidence really prove that he was never bullied? Aren't there still places that he could come into contact with violence without any of those people seeing? For example, the girl paused in the middle of her sentence and turned only her head to look over at the door to the art room. A unique sort of classroom that can be locked from the inside, just like this one. On her brow, hidden beneath her bangs and in her clenched hands, Shintani started to sweat. Have you heard this, Sensei? Apparently, the marks on Yuki-kun's body didn't look like they were simply from him being punched or kicked. He had a bunch of unusual marks on him, almost like a dull knife had been pressed against his skin. Still staring down at the sketchbook in her hands, out of the corner of her eyes, Shintani saw the palette knife sitting on top of the desk. She waited a moment not to seem suspicious, then stood up holding her sketchbook. Under the guise of getting a different angle of the girl, she moved toward the desk with the knife sitting on it. She stole the knife out from under the girl's eyes and, being careful not to make a sound, put it into the drawer in her desk. It's okay. She didn't notice. Shintani let out a sigh of relief. While still standing there, she made a few strokes in the sketchbook with her pencil before slowly returning to her own chair. I've been thinking, maybe Yuki-kun wasn't being bullied at all. Maybe he was being abused by an adult. Why do you think that? The burn scars. Shintani swallowed a breath and let out a strange sound out of her throat. On Yuki-kun's body, there were multiple little round scars from burn marks that looked like blisters, almost like someone had been burning him with the end of a cigarette. Shintani once again looked over at her desk. She would draw too much attention to herself if she walked over to it again. However, there was no real reason for her to worry. She made sure to put her cigarettes into the drawer earlier. Besides, there isn't an ashtray in this room. Even if you looked into the cans sitting on her desk, at a glance you wouldn't be able to tell that there was a cigarette butt inside. As for the smell, there were so many different smells in an art room from the paint and materials that it shouldn't be noticeable. The girl tilted her head and shifted her gaze to Shintani's waist area. Sensei, is that a lighter in your pocket? This time, Shintani's heart really did jump with fright. In a panic, she looked down at her jacket's pocket. It was just a small portion of it, but you could clearly see the small rectangular shape snugly tucked into her pocket. That's surprising. Sensei, do you smoke? Do you usually try to hide it? Well, for a teacher like you, it must feel pretty shameful to smoke out in the open. Especially since even the male teachers don't smoke as much anymore. Snap. Shintani must have put too much strength behind the pencil she was drawing with, and broke the lead right off the tip. Oh, what's wrong? Are you okay? Still sitting posed in her chair, the girl extended a hand out towards Shintani. In that hand, she held a pencil. If it's okay with you, please use mine. No, it's fine. Shintani reached in her pencil case, got out a box cutter, and started to sharpen her broken pencil. Staring down at the pencil she was whittling away at, Shintani thought to herself, what the hell am I doing? If only this kid wasn't here right now, I'd be... No, it's not like her chances were ruined. She just had to bide her time like she intended to do before. Be patient and wait for another day. Suddenly, Shintani felt that something was out of place. Where did the girl get that pencil from just now? The girl wasn't carrying a bag with her, never mind a pencil case. The pencil that she held out looked like it had just been sharpened. The newly polished lead looked just as sharp as a needle. Did she have it in her pocket? No, she probably wouldn't have been able to carry around that pencil in her pocket without ruining the sharpness of the lead at least a little. She suddenly pulled out a pencil and handed it to Shintani. That's all that happened, but no matter what, Shintani couldn't shake her sense that something was out of place. Out of place? But what? It had completely slipped her mind. That ghost story. The first rule of the story of Renoir of the Art Room. Never let Renoir lend you a paintbrush. A cold sweat ran down Shintani's back. Would a pencil count just the same as a paintbrush? What would have happened if she had accepted that pencil? Would she have broken the rule? It was a story about a yokai named Renoir, so obviously she's not supposed to let that yokai lend her anything. But what about a random girl she doesn't even know the name of? That's not breaking the rules, right? Just, who is this girl? Was the girl modeling in front of Shintani really just a normal human being? She suddenly began to doubt something that she had never doubted before. What's wrong, Sensei? You're looking a little pale. Why am I doing this? Sitting in the art room after school being made to draw a picture of a girl whose name I don't know. Who even is she? I don't even know her name. No, I don't even know what she is. Oh, by the way, you know when they found Yuki-kun? Apparently the buttons on his shirt were mixed up. Huh? Buttons? Mixed up? Shintani tried to jog her memory, but it was no good. She couldn't remember much of what happened then. She was in too much of a panic. I thought it was really odd. After all, he seemed to have a really orderly personality. He always buttoned them up to the very top button. So I was thinking, what if someone changed his clothes after death? How absurd! What? Are you suggesting that he was naked at the time of his death? As she spoke, Shintani noticed something. The burn marks, the messed up buttons on the shirt. Why did this girl know all of these things? Practically the only person who actually saw Yuki's body was the teacher who found it after school. The police were immediately called. From then on, entering the classroom should have been off limits. There shouldn't have been any opportunity for a student to get a look at his corpse. Assuming she saw the body, then that would mean that she was there in the art room when it happened. Shintani and Yuki should have been the only two people in the room, but she was there. Would it have been so odd for him to be naked? After all, this is the art room. I read in a book once that drawing the naked human form is the best way to practice sketching. Ah, by the way, Sensei. The girl's large eyes looked directly into Shintani's. Sensei, do you do nude drawings? Bang! Shintani sank down into her chair. Her back was covered in sticky sweat. She gulped down her saliva. Shintani was now positive. This girl knew. She saw everything that Shintani had done in this room. Who was watching? There shouldn't have been anyone, and yet she was there. In that case, she must have been there all along. The only possibility is that she is not human. This girl is Renoir of the art room. Of that, she was sure. Well, Sensei, do you do nude drawings? What are you talking about? Of course I do. Shintani was about to say that she didn't, but once again she remembered something. Another rule of Renoir of the art room. You can't lie when answering Renoir's questions. Of course I do. Of course you what? The girl, no, Renoir, put on a sinister smile. If she had said, of course I don't, then that would have been a lie. If she had done that, what would that have meant for her? Would she have been caught in a curse? There was no doubt about it now. This girl before her was not human. Shintani began to understand. Understand that the being in front of her eyes obviously lacked even a hint of humanity. Renoir had asked if she drew nude pictures. She can't lie. That was one of the rules. I do. Her voice trembled. For the first time in her life, she felt how terrifying it was. How terrifying it was to answer the questions of an otherworldly being. Just like you said, it's difficult to draw the human body, so it's good practice. Subconsciously, she shifted her gaze over to the desk drawer. Oh? Well then, have you ever drawn one in this art room? Shintani closed her mouth. She couldn't answer with a lie. While keeping silent, Shintani recalled Yukinota's beautiful, naked body. His immature male body. Whenever she moved the palette knife, a red line would follow. And when her cigarette caused an unsightly burn mark on that beautiful white skin, she shivered with pleasure. Not answering? That's no fair. You could at least let me kill some time by chatting. It gets boring as a model not being able to move. As she said that, the girl stood up. All she did was stand, but it almost felt like Shintani was being looked down on by a giant. Shintani was overwhelmed and started to tremble. Time to cut the nonsense. Nonsense? What do you mean? I already know. The girl laughed. She laughed because she knew. She laughed because she already knew what I had done. Yeah, you do? I thought so. You are Renoir of the art room from the rumor, aren't you? She spoke with all the courage she could muster, but in reality, Shintani's body was covered in beads of sweat. How perceptive of you. Yes, I am the 6th ranked of the school yokai, Renoir of the art room. At last, the girl gave her name. A supernatural being willingly gave its name. But oddly enough, by hearing her name, the fear that Shintani felt slightly lessened. By knowing who was standing in front of her, she gained the ability to prepare herself for what was coming. Thank you for your self-introduction. I suppose I should do the same. I am the advisor of the art club, as well as the manager of the art room, Nafumi Shintani. The trembling in her voice had lessened a bit. The most frightening thing for a person to face is something they can't gauge the danger of. Even if she is facing a monster not of this world, as long as she knows what she's facing, she can brace herself for the worst. Her face was drenched with droplets of sweat, but she was still holding her fear back. To suddenly appear before me like this, what business do you have with me? You sure ask some stupid questions. There's really only one reason for a yokai to appear before a human. Going by the ghost story, you must be here to drag me into a painting. That is how Renoir hunts. These paintings are my mouth, and the souls that I've swallowed are endlessly tossed about on my tongue. Sorry, but I don't intend to be eaten by you so easily. After all, even you have rules you have to abide by, right? You can't let Renoir lend you a paintbrush. Isn't that what you were trying to do by lending me a pencil earlier? Not bad. You're right. If you had taken that pencil, right about now you'd be inside a painting. Also, I'm not supposed to lie when answering your questions. If there's something that I don't want to answer, though, I can just stay silent. It's not that hard to not lie if I look at it like that. It's a pretty easy rule to follow, really. And thus, there's only one more way for you to manage to take me. If Renoir points to one of the pictures in the art room and asks you who made it, you have to answer the name of the artist correctly. You're right. But with this many pictures on the walls, will you really be able to name the artist for all of them? Who do you take me for? I'm the advisor of the art club, Nafumi Shintani. Of course I'm up to that challenge. Perfect. Let's decide once and for all then. Who is the true master of the art room, me or you? Shintani finally understood. Earlier she compared herself to a queen bee, and this school that the beautiful little bees gather into bring her honey, she compared to a beehive. Then, as the queen bee, this school would be a palace, and she was its master. As a yokai who calls itself the master of the art room, you're pretty boring. That's just it. We couldn't care less if you humans use this school to study during the day, but we're not about to let any of you trespass on our nighttime domain. Exactly. As a queen bee, I have set foot into their domain, and the art room at night is my world. I won't hand it over to the likes of some ghost story. Renoir, the yokai of the art room. and Nafumi Shintani, the queen bee of the art room. They stood face to face, glaring into each other's eyes. The dry air between them smelled like gunpowder. Shintani gulped and looked around at the artwork surrounding her. It'll be fine. I know all of these. I should know all of them. Renoir examined my eyes as I looked at the pictures, carefully watching for one I looked uncertain about, and then she stopped in front of a painting. Overall, it was a very eerie painting. It was a horrible scene of a naked man eating off the head of a child. Nearly all the kids who come to the art room will avert their eyes from it at first. Frightening, isn't it? Obsessed with defying the prophecy that he would be killed by one of his own children, this man ate each one of them, one after another. Saturn devouring his son. The name of the painting, Saturn devouring his son, was written beneath the frame, but the name of the artist wasn't. She's not sure what reason the previous art teacher had for doing so, but even though every picture hanging in the art room was labeled with its title, the artists' names were all left out. So, can you tell me? Who did this painting? Okay, there's the question. If this was just some art test or something, Shintani would just calmly pull the answer from her memory and jot it down with her pencil. But if she gets the question wrong now, it could mean her death. That pressure made it hard for her to think. It's Goya. Can you tell me the full name? Francisco de Goya, right? That should be right. It has to be. She gave the answer quickly and correctly. So why was Renoir smirking like she had gotten it wrong? Do you really have so little confidence? I wasn't expecting it to be taking an art test at this age. So, was I correct? What's the answer? When taking a test, don't the students have to wait until the end to figure out what they got right? So apparently she didn't intend to tell the results until the test is finished. But if she gets even one question wrong, she'll fail, so there would be no reason to continue the test anyway. In that case, it wouldn't be wrong to assume that moving on to the next question means that she got the previous one right. Well, what about this one? Picasso. Pablo Picasso. The picture she was pointing at was called Guernica. It's an epic work created during the Spanish Civil War in response to the Nazis' indiscriminate bombing of the town Guernica. There's a mother crying out in grief at the loss of her child, a woman staring up at the sky in despair, and a ghastly horse neighing in mad confusion. It's supposed to be a masterpiece that portrays the horrors of war, but unfortunately most of the students who see it don't know the context, so they just think it's a bizarre abstract painting. Okay, and this one? The 4 Stages of Cruelty. As the name suggests, it's a series of 4 prints. They follow the life of one cruel man from the time he was a boy up until his death. And as a shocking conclusion, in the final print, he has been hung to death, and his body is being dissected in an anatomy class. A cruel person will meet a cruel end. That is the message that the series conveys. But the kids who see this one can't understand that, and more or less think that it's just a gory picture. You choose such great pictures. Thank you. I'm only choosing the ones I like. Renoir grinned. Renoir's curse caused the victim to be dragged into the painting. Getting dragged into a pleasant or peaceful painting would just be laughable. So naturally, every picture that Renoir chooses is going to contain something that she wants to happen. And who did this one? Hogarth. William Hogarth. What about this one? And that one? And that one? Renoir was obviously growing impatient with Shintani's extensive knowledge. She clicked her tongue and sped up the pace, choosing one after another. Shintani wasn't going to lose. She gave the names just as quickly, using Renoir's impatience against her. Eventually, Shintani realized something. The more questions she answered correctly, the quicker Renoir's breathing became. If she looked closely, she could see that Renoir was breathing so heavily it was almost like she had just finished running a marathon. It appears that the more questions she gets right, the more cornered the yokai becomes. I see. I understand. This isn't just a one-sided fight. If I lose, I'll be pulled into a painting and killed. But if she loses, she will never be able again to show herself here. Not bad. You really are a foolish child. This is what you get for not choosing your enemies carefully. You're right. It seems that I've underestimated you. Did you think me saying I was the advisor of the art club was a joke? There's not a picture in here that I can't name the artist of. Shintani asserted that she had the upper hand. With her mental superiority, she could freely pull the answer to any of Renoir's questions out of her memory. There was no longer anything she was afraid of. Are we finished already? Or are you so worn out that you need to take a break? Yeah, it looks like I may need to do just that. Dripping with sweat and slightly smiling, Renoir once again sat down in the modeling chair. Hey, Sensei. What about my question from earlier? Are you not going to give me an answer? Question? Didn't I answer all of them? In this art room, have you really never done a nude drawing or something in here? She had no intention of answering. According to the rules of Renoir of the art room, she couldn't lie when answering a question. If Renoir asked for the name of an artist, she had to answer. But she was not obligated to answer any question other than that in any way. And so, Shintani calmly replied to that question with silence. Whatever scheme you're trying to pull, it's not going to work. I am the master of this art room. But do you really think that I'm so closed-minded as to not let a yokai take up residence in it during the middle of the night? How's this for a deal? If you vow to never show yourself before me again, then after school is over and I've left the art room, you're free to do as you please. We'll be like the perfect roommates. You're not going to answer my question? Who cares if I've done a nude drawing or not? Doesn't matter. Are you sure it really doesn't matter? You seem pretty shaken up over something that apparently doesn't matter. Renoir should be the one who's cornered right now. So why was Shintani the one who felt like she was being seen through? Alright then, I'll change the question. Even though you probably won't answer this one either. Of course I won't. After all, there's no reason to. Where were you when Yuki-kun died? Pressure spread through Shintani's temples. A pain hit the back of her eyeballs and blurred her vision a little. You're not going to answer, are you? Well then, guess I'm just gonna have to make my best guess. Were you already safe at home? Or maybe you were still doing work in the staff room? Or maybe you were in this very art room. Were you here in this art room, Sensei? Were you with Yuki-kun when he died? For an instant, she had a flashback-like memory to that day. The first image that appeared in her mind was that of a right hand. Her right hand, to be specific, reaching out and pushing on Yuki's back. Yuki falling underneath the table, the legs shaking beneath the table, the plaster figure falling down onto him. An expanding red stain, and lying on that stain almost as if sleeping, Yuki Noda. It played out in her memory like a bad quality slideshow. Why? The words unconsciously escaped her mouth. Why? Why did you? She called out Yuki-kun's name with a groan. I didn't mean for that to happen. When I reached out my hand, I didn't mean to shove you away. It was the opposite. I didn't want to let you go. Why? Why did that happen? Renoir slipped in, through that small gap in her heart. Good, very good. Selfish regret, conceited guilt. Your soul is so wonderful right now. It's getting seasoned with such a delightful flavor, and it looks so tasty. Suddenly, Renoir snapped her fingers, and like magic, the desk drawer opened on its own. Before Shintani could even say a word, dozens of papers came dancing out of that drawer as if they were alive. Papers scattered about everywhere, covering the art room. Papers, papers, papers. They were drawings, countless sketches of naked boys, sleeping boys, bound boys, boys covered in red streaks from a palette knife, boys frantically enduring the pain and heat of being burned by a cigarette, boys crying out from being trampled on. These excessively immoral sketches flew one after another past Shintani's dumbfounded face like a slideshow. Slowly, Renoir stood up. Her face was shrouded in darkness, her expression could not be seen. But an oddly horrifying red and black energy surrounded her whole body. Among the countless sketches dancing around the room, there were a few pages that stood out to Shintani as her eyes passed over them. They were the unfinished sketches of Yuki Noda from that day, his body covered in cuts and bruises, his face looking worn out, his expression of desperate perseverance with a hint of sadness. Now this is the final question of Renoir of the art room. Answer this for me, Shintani-sensei. Who drew all these pictures? These sketches are proof, indisputable proof that Nafumi Shintani lustfully assaulted the young pale body of Yuki Noda. And now she had to admit it. She had to truthfully answer the name of the artist of the pictures that Renoir was pointing to. Come on, answer me, Shintani-sensei! Who drew these pictures? And by admitting to them, the date and time are written on those sketches. By admitting to them, she is admitting what she was doing and who she was with just before the death of Yuki Noda. It was an accident, but it wasn't just any old accident. He went into the art room alone and had a horrible accident all by himself. What was there for her to admit? No, this isn't funny. The art room is my hive. This is the royal throne of the queen bee. This is where all the beautiful little bees bring me their honey, and I can covet their pale white skin as much as I want. If the case of Yuki Noda's death goes public, my paradise will be ruined. My hive will be broken. Come on, answer me. Tell me who drew these pictures. Nafumi Shintani. I did. Shintani replied coldly, and suddenly the sound of glass being broken echoed through the room, and Renoir stopped moving. A huge crack streaked across Renoir's chest, and then, after suddenly shaking, she broke into 1,000,000 pieces. Then, standing there was an entirely different black-haired girl. I see. This must be the yokai's true form. Oh, I didn't think you would answer so confidently. It's true. I drew those pictures. So what? Shintani had such an eerie expression on her face that even the yokai Renoir had to gulp. That's right. Doing these drawings is my hobby, my desire, my aspiration. Sorry, but that's just who I am. Shintani probably hadn't noticed it, but Renoir had. Emanating from the body of this woman, who was so bluntly professing her evil desires, was a powerful energy that normally only poured from the body of a yokai. This was because the human Nafumi Shintani was admitting to such an inhuman lust. In other words, she was admitting to stepping foot into the world of those that are not human at all. So now, as a denizen of the inhuman world, Nafumi Shintani was overpowering Renoir. Today, the pathetic ghost story of Renoir of the art room will cease to exist. Yes, from this day forward I will be known as the queen bee of the art room. During the daytime as a sweet teacher, and during the nighttime as a queen bee. I will reign over this hive called a school, and the beautiful, young, and pure worker bees will bring to me the momentary nectar called youth so that I may satisfy myself with it. What a great yokai. A teacher who denounces her students as nothing more than worker bees. Was Yuki Noda-kun just another one of those many bees to you? He was such a wonderful bee. His honey was so rich and vivid that its sweetness made my whole body boil. I will never forget him. With him gone, I've lost such a valuable boy. He liked you, you know. Although being such a young boy, naturally he was unable to realize it for himself. I know he did. He liked me. He was at an age where he should be wanting his mother's affection, but for some reason he was longing for another woman. It was a bittersweet feeling. He was too young to realize that what he felt was love. But that was fine, because I'm too old to feel such young love. Shintani provocatively licked the end of her little finger in an obscene manner. Yukinoda certainly was a charming young boy, and not just because of his pure white skin. By falling in love with me, he was able to turn the tables and accept all of my lust. If no one serves the queen bee, she cannot reign. If a worker bee does not have the admiration and adoration of their queen, they are not qualified to serve. Yukinoda had those qualifications, so I allowed him to serve me. But this is a bee's hive, and countless worker bees are bustling within it. He isn't the only worker bee that brings me his honey. It's just that he was qualified to serve me. Now that he's gone, I will declare it with great pride. He was not the most beautiful gem around. There are other kids more beautiful than he was. There are other kids that I'm interested in. You're such an awful teacher. He bravely accepted your wicked desires with his own body. But instead of feeling sorry for him, you say he was not the most beautiful gem around? Yeah, he was great, but he was not the best. Or rather, his usefulness just ran out. He tried to run away from me. He should have just continued to serve me. He played along with your shameless desires. Isn't that enough? That's just the thing. At that time, at that moment, he lost the qualifications to serve me. What a stupid kid. If he hadn't done that, he wouldn't be dead right now. You're going to call that boy who you treated so horribly as your plaything a stupid kid? Yes, I will. He was a stupid kid. He should have been a doll that only I could look at and only I could play with. You are the epitome of selfishness. He showed his affection for you and sacrificed his body for your desires until he couldn't take it anymore. And you're not even the least bit sorry? Of course I'm not. I'm the queen bee. The other bees show their affection to me and I will enjoy their honey. I am the queen of this art room. It should be an honor to serve me. Those who don't feel honored are fools who need to know their place. Am I sorry for Yuki-kun? Not even in the slightest. After all, I am the queen. It was at that moment that a different voice echoed through the art room. You really aren't going to apologize to Yuki-kun, are you? There's someone else in this room besides me and Renoir? Stunned, Shintani reflexively turned towards where the voice came from. A young boy was standing there. It was that nameless boy who should have been sleeping on the sofa. Huh? You're awake? You really aren't going to apologize to Yuki-kun, are you? He repeated himself. What is up with this kid? Why didn't I ask him his name? How many times has she suddenly met such beautiful prey, but hadn't asked their name before asking them to model? Shintani can remember the feeling she had when she first entered the art room and saw him. But the memory's so fuzzy, it's almost like a dream she forgot after waking up. Even though it just happened, she can barely remember it. I never once wondered to myself what his name was. It's almost like someone else took control of her thoughts. Who was I talking to again? Who was I drawing? The boy's visage overlapped with that of a painting. Specifically, the painting known as Child with a Whip, the piece of art by Renoir. The girl in that painting has long hair and is wearing a skirt. This boy's hair is long. He doesn't have a skirt, but his face and his eyes. I just realized what felt so out of place. I feel like I've seen that boy's face somewhere before, but that's what has been bugging me. This boy is... People make that mistake a lot, confusing me for a girl. People often make the mistake of thinking that Renoir's painting, Child with a Whip, is a portrait of a girl. Actually, it's a boy. In France, at the time this painting was done, it was common for upper-class families to dress their boys in skirts. Because the hair was so long, I assumed it was a girl. But if the hair was shorter, that kid really would look just like this boy here. That similarity was also mentioned in Renoir's ghost story. 5. Renoir looks just like the kid in the painting Child with the Whip, hanging on the art room's wall. He cut his hair, so I didn't realize it. Besides, thinking back on it, he said something earlier, during our conversation when I was drawing him modeling. I'm sorry, I'm not really used to doing this, so... Don't worry, it's your first time being a model, right? No. Actually, I've done it once before, but that was a long time ago. Before? How long before was that? He didn't mean it was a month or a year before. He must have meant much, much longer before. In other words, during another era. From a time long before Shintani was even born, before the school was even built. Basically, over 100 years ago. Also, there was something else she thought to herself when she was drawing. That this boy's face was cuter than most girls out there. And that if he were to wear girls' clothes and a wig, then very few people would even suspect him of being male. That is to say, if his hair was longer and he was wearing girls' clothes, like a skirt, then he could be mistaken for a girl. Shintani imagined what he would look like if he had longer hair and was wearing a skirt, and if the skirt was colored a bluish color. I am Renoir, 6th ranked of the school yokai, Renoir of the art room. And I am Higanbana, the 3rd ranked of the school yokai, the dancing Higanbana. That makes no sense. They were both yokai? As a yokai, I've been asleep for a very long time, and because I was asleep for so long, I've yet to recover all of my power. I can only occasionally make my presence known. That is how far my power has fallen. So Higanbana is helping me. Her soul doesn't really fit my tastes, but as long as I'm getting my share of it, just by helping in your hunt a little, well, I guess I can't complain. Thanks. I will handle the rest from here. The real Renoir spoke and started to slowly walk. He had the same delicate appearance that he had before, but for some reason, Shintani felt small compared to him, and started backing up. Yuki-kun really did love you. It was a feeling much more innocent and beautiful than you imagined. Renoir bent over and picked up one of the sketches from the floor. So, when you asked him to be your personal model, he was very happy. He thought that he could finally be of use to you. He was really happy. Within those sketches is a detailed record of the pitiful, abused, naked body of a boy, and by drawing them, she was only disgracing him further. Basically, he thought like this: if I accept her desires, maybe she'll accept my feelings. And so he quietly obeyed your every order. Exactly. That's called a servant. He's my beautiful slave, and obeying my orders is his purpose. Yes, all you did was one-sidedly devour his kindness. There's no way that Yuki-kun didn't realize what you were doing. Love is blind. Yuki really did love her, didn't he? This lustful woman. And on that day, for the first time, Yuki-kun resisted you. On that day, for the first time, Yuki pushed away Shintani's hand when she tried to undo his shirt buttons. Sensei, please stop. He spoke in a hoarse voice, refusing me for the first time. I couldn't forgive that. I'm a queen. I own you, and yet you resist me? I wouldn't forgive that. I was furious. I violently tried to remove his clothes from him. Yuki-kun got scared and tried to run out of the art room, and you pushed him on the back. And he fell into the legs of the desk, and that's when the plaster bust lost its balance in. It was an accident! I didn't mean to push him. I was just trying to grab his shoulder. He fell down on his own and rolled into the desk on his own. It was just bad luck that the bust fell and hit him in the vital spot. It was all an accident. It wasn't my fault! So she says. You're right. It may have just been an accident. But that wasn't what I wanted to know. That wasn't it at all. Oh? Okay then, what do you... Renoir's face still had the same indifferent expression as before. but he was so dreadfully overpowering that she couldn't help but avert her eyes and retreat even further. I wanted to ask you for him. I know you thought of him as nothing more than a toy, and I know that you didn't purposefully kill him. So, I wanted to ask you what he couldn't in his stead. So, what is it? And you've already told me. It was such an unfortunate answer. What was it? What did I answer? Your answer was that you're not even the least bit sorry for Yuki-kun. For that one instant, Renoir's expressionless face became twisted. You made Yuki-kun into your plaything, and were at least somewhat responsible for his death, and yet you won't embrace any apologetic feelings for him. I cannot forgive that, so I will hunt you, so that Yuki-kun can rest without regrets. I borrowed assistance from Higanbana and appeared before you here. Ha! Ha! So that's how it is. Yuki-kun's soul was able to disguise itself as you and become a yokai. What's so funny? It's just funny, because you're Renoir of the art room, right? Yes, and? Then you have the same problem. In order to avenge Yuki-kun, you have to challenge me by the rules of the ghost story. That's right. I will follow the rules of the ghost story of Renoir, and make you my prey. And how will you do that? Didn't you see me turn the tables on this black-haired girl who was trying to challenge me earlier? I was able to answer the names of each and every artist correctly, and now that I know your true identity, I won't let you lend me a paintbrush, and I won't mess up and tell a lie while answering you. No matter how much you despise me, you won't be able to beat me. So she says. What's so funny? You can't beat me, I already established that. Whether you think he can beat you or not, Renoir has already won. Sensei, have you already forgotten? What? The black-haired girl giggled like she was looking down on me, giggling like I was the only one who didn't realize the circumstances of the situation. When I was modeling, and you were drawing me, I asked you a question, Sensei. Why did that accident have to happen to Yuki-kun? Who can say? I don't really know. Why did that accident happen to Yuki-kun? I knew. After all, he died right in front of me. That's right. I knew! But you said otherwise. You said you didn't know. Even though you knew, you lied and said you didn't. Do you know what that means? The color drained from Shintani's face, and a sound followed. It sounded like the ocean tide going out. You can't lie when answering Renoir's questions. If you break the rules, you'll befall the same fate as one of the paintings on the art room walls. The many repulsive paintings and drawings on the art room walls began to surround Shintani. They circled around Shintani like a whirlpool. Would she be doomed to the world of Saturn and be eaten alive? Or would she be fated to the world of Grenerka, where she would be enveloped by the fires of war? If not that, would she meet the tragedy of being killed and dissected, her entrails pulled out of her stomach like in the 4 stages of cruelty? No. No, 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 no! They're all horrible! No, no, no! If you would have apologized to Yuki-kun, I would have just left it as being an unfortunate accident, because he loved you to the very end. Stop! No! No! But you didn't have even an ounce of apologetic feelings within you. So, you will be punished. Now then, I'll let you choose the fate you want to befall. Whichever you choose, you will be endlessly tormented with it until his soul can be saved. Stop! Help! Someone help! Shintani screamed and ran out of the art room, and in doing so, she looked exactly the same as Yuki did when he tried to escape from her. As she ran, she bumped into the art room desk. There used to be a plaster bust there, but ever since the accident it had been removed, so it could not be her punishment. She ran out of the art room, and with a shrill scream, she dashed down the hall and practically leaped down a flight of stairs. Shall I make her trip and fall and send her to the infirmary? There's no need. She has chosen her own fate. A fate from one of these pictures. Renoir looked at one of the pictures hanging on the wall. Higanbana noticed the painting as well and read the name card. I see. Ascending and descending. By the way, who drew that one? Moritz Cornelius Escher. Shintani violently forced air out of her lungs and then sucked it back in, confusedly forcing herself to swallow oxygen as she frantically ran down the stairs. She wanted to get as far away from the art room, no, as far away from the school as possible. She was so extremely afraid and anxious that she could no longer feel her legs. Having used up her strength, all she could do to keep moving was to force herself to. I can't stop moving, I have to run away. Run! Run faster! I have to move my left foot, right foot, faster, more! Driven by fear, she will never notice, no matter how many stairs she goes down, and down, and down, and down, she will never reach the next floor. She'll just keep winding down the same staircase, landings over and over again. Like a hamster in a wheel, she will continue running as if something was chasing her, running in circles forever, down an endless staircase. Eventually, she may realize that she's an endless staircase that doesn't go anywhere. But she will never stop running, for if she does, she will be dragged into one of those terrible pictures in the art room, and that fear will spur her on for all eternity. But eventually she may realize that she's already in one of those pictures. For some reason, she couldn't stop crying, but she didn't know what emotion was causing it. Was it dread or despair? Or perhaps she was finally feeling remorse for her actions. Tears flowed from her eyes, snot from her nose, and saliva from her mouth. Liquid dripped from her whole body as she ran down that endless staircase. If there is a hell, this would be it. It lacks the grace of my hunts, but your hunts are pretty cruel too. I will not kill her. I've just trapped her in a jail cell to think about what she's done for all eternity. Well then, I'll be taking my leave. Thanks for the food. Every once in a while, a soul like hers makes for a rare treat. Just as Higanbana was about to disappear, she happened to notice something. She looked again at the picture of endless staircases that Shintani had been pulled into, ascending and descending. Hey, won't someone notice that? Who knows? But if they do know the Escher original well enough to notice, then as yokai of the art room, I'll be quite happy. In the picture, there are numerous people drawing, walking around that endless staircase, and among them, a single woman was added. A pitiful, exhausted woman with tears smearing makeup down her face. And even though her legs are worn out, she will continue to be forced to run down those stairs for all eternity. Alright, see you some other time. Try to save up some strength for your next hunt. Otherwise you'll be worthless next time you're in a pinch. Sumeri's been working pretty hard too, you know. Yeah, there are some bad kids that goof around in the art room every once in a while. Might be a good idea to give them a little punishment. Bye, Renoir. See you later. Probably at least one of the Class 13's homeroom. Higanbana disappeared, and thus there was nothing left in the art room with Renoir but silence. Yeah, she may be right. If I had more power, I might have been able to protect you. Renoir picked up one of the sketches that had fallen to the floor. In that picture, Yuki had a quiet and soft smile on his face. He was the first human that Renoir had talked to in a long time. He had such a valuable wavelength that he was able to converse with me. He showed a great interest in the arts, and although the time we had together was short, he made for a wonderful person to talk to. When I was troubled with how much I looked like a girl because of my long hair and skirt, he told me this: if you really don't like how you look, Why not try changing your clothes? Or maybe cut your hair shorter? I cut my hair and changed my clothes. I wish I could show him how I look now. Yuki-kun, at least I could make the art room that you liked a little better looking. This room will get a new teacher as its master, and they won't just put up scary pictures. They'll put up fun pictures as well. I thought back on the various pictures we discussed that day. This picture looks like a little kid's scribbles. This picture's scary, but the colors are really pretty. I like this one best. No wait, I like this one more. Our time was short, but it was so fun. Since I became a school yokai, I never thought that I would have such a fun conversation with a human. Humans are just prey. It's our job to make them live in fear. That's what I thought, but... That's right. Higanbana said that she too once had interest in a human. Apparently the 8th ranked girl used to be a human too. While on one hand there are humans with lust-filled souls like Shintani, sometimes there are humans that make us want to forget we are yokai. Like him. They're so interesting, those humans. There are so many different kinds of humans as there are motifs in art. After that, every once in a while, there were whispers of the story of Renoir of the art room. The story about a strange boy that will talk to you if you go into the art room after school when nobody should be there. But because he will get absorbed in discussion with kids who love art, it doesn't sound like that scary of a story. The students in the art club even sing his praises, saying that if you meet him, your skill at art will increase. But you mustn't forget to show respect. Yokai will tolerate those who show respect, but those who don't? There still hasn't been a single student who has noticed the extra woman in the Escher print on the art room wall.